Hey guys, how's it going? Happy Independence Day. I hope you're all doing really well and having a good time hanging out with your friends and family. And many people enjoy barbecues, fireworks, parades, and celebrations. I'd like to talk about what's so significant about this 4th day of July. And it's actually very, very simple and very, very profound. In my opinion, probably the most beautiful document ever written on this land in America was written on this date. But before we get into that, let's go back to April 19th, 1775. And also at the same time, if you can, think about 2022 with the gun control that's going on right now, with the tyranny and oppression in this country that we see every day. So, the British marched into 2 towns in Massachusetts on April 19th, 1775, Lexington and Concord, and they were there to seize weapons from the colonists because they were afraid there would be a rebellion or an uprising. That's when the famous shot heard around the world occurred and the American Revolutionary War started. Now this war would continue for over 8 years. Many deaths, lots of carnage. War is never a beautiful thing, but the colonists knew that if they let them seize those weapons, there would be no chance. There would be no chance on this experiment of self-governance of the people, by the people, for the people, that a government would be created only to protect rights that were not granted by government, but natural rights. The biggest experiment on self-governance there ever was, as Ben Franklin said a few years later, a republic, if you can keep it. So the war had started in 1775. And in Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind require that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And literally, if you have those 3 things, what more could you possibly need? Literally, this is the definition of something that's beautiful. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not granted by government, but endowed by your Creator. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That was the colonist up until this date, and that's actually you right now. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles, and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. How do we get to where we are right now? You might be asking yourself. Well, actually, the Founding Fathers had a very good explanation for that. And think about this. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. I'm going to leave a link down in the description. It goes on to talk about the specific list of grievances that the colonists had against the King of Great Britain. And it had to do with unjust taxation. It had to do with not being represented properly. And there's some of it that probably isn't germane to what's going on right now. But a lot of it actually kind of scarily is very similar to what's going on right now. This document, it's just words on a piece of paper if people actually forget why this country was founded, the principles of what it was founded on. And these principles should be timeless. And you should remember what was written on July 4th, 1776, and talk about it to people on July 4th, 2022. Because it seems to me that Independence Day's kind of been relegated just to the 4th of July. People get a day off work, people eat, they hang out, and it's very important to socialize and hang out, obviously. But when this country was founded, fast forward a little bit after this, when they were assembling the first Congress, and they had established the legal documents, the Constitution, the supreme law of the land, Ben Franklin was asked by a woman, "Sir, do we have a monarchy or a republic?" He said, "A republic, if you can keep it." And he meant that to that lady back then, and he also meant it to you today. It's up to you if you want to preserve this experiment on self-governance, if you want a government to exist only to protect your natural rights, or do you want permissions to be dictated to you by a king, or by a monarchy, or by a president, or by a former vice president? The choice is yours, and the colonists chose in 1775 to fight off the British, and the colonists also chose to pen this Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776. Now keep in mind, they were going up against a military superpower. The largest army, navy, amount of troops in the whole world. Great Britain was probably more powerful in 1776 worldwide, definitely more in my opinion, than the United States of America is today. And think about that. And there's hundreds of millions of people in this country, in the United States of America. And many of them celebrate the 4th of July. But there were 56 people. You know, people often ask today, what does it mean to be a man? This is what it meant to be a man. This is what it means to be a man. And they signed their names to literally what would be a death sentence had they lost. They had to win at all costs. Because they knew if they couldn't secure this republic, these United States of America, they wouldn't get another chance. Chances like this were once in a lifetime. Chances were like this were once in several hundred years. And these 56 brave men knew that, and they were willing to do this at all cost. And at the very end, before they signed their names, they said, "And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." And these 56 men were heroes, and I'm going to read their names real quickly. Some of them are very famous, and you know who they are. Some of them, you may have never heard their name before, but you should know who they are. Because these are the biggest heroes we've ever had and probably ever will have in these United States of America. From Georgia, Button Gwinnett, Lyman Hall, George Walton. All these men would have died had they lost. A lot of them did lose their fortunes in the process. North Carolina, William Hooper, Joseph Hughes, John Penn. South Carolina, Edward Rutledge, Thomas Hayward Jr., Thomas Lynch Jr., Arthur Middleton. Massachusetts, John Hancock. Maryland, Samuel Chase. William Paca, Thomas Stone, Charles Carroll of Carrollton. Virginia, George Wythe. Richard Henry Lee, Thomas Jefferson. Benjamin Harrison, Thomas Nelson Jr., Francis Lightfoot Lee, Carter Braxton. Pennsylvania, Robert Morris, Benjamin Rush, Benjamin Franklin, John Morton, George Clymer, James Smith, George Taylor, James Wilson, George Ross. Delaware, Cesar Rodney, George Reed, Thomas McKean. Of New York, William Floyd, Philip Livingston, Francis Lewis, Lewis Morris. New Jersey, Richard Stockton, John Witherspoon, Francis Hopkinson, John Hart, Abraham Clark. New Hampshire, Josiah Bartlett, William Whipple. Massachusetts, Samuel Adams, John Adams, Robert Treat Payne. Elbridge Gerry, Rhode Island, Stephen Hopkins, William Ellerly. Connecticut, Roger Sherman, Samuel Huntington, William Williams, Oliver Wolcott. New Hampshire, Matthew Thornton. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and have a good one.